Hello, friends. Have you ever been interviewed for a job or for joining school or college? When my son Bruce was just 5, we applied for admission to our local Catholic school. He actually had to face an interview with the principal, a Jesuit priest, quite a burly man. Father looked hard at little Bruce and shot out, "Young man, what do you do in church? Do you pray or do you play?" Bruce was unfazed. He considered for a moment and then he answered truthfully, "I do both." He was given admission. Maybe the Jesuits were happy to have another sportsman in their ranks. So that's Bruce when he was a little guy, and 30 years down the line at the same school, an old boys football tournament, and with his own little son. When you are being interviewed, the person interviewing you tries to find out if you are able to fit the position, to do your part well. Not only able, but also ready mentally for the job. If it's the armed forces, the application process is quite grueling. The officer will want to know if you're ready to go through tough physical training, to submit to authority. That's quite a difficult one. And of course, you have to be ready to move wherever you're posted. So today's gospel sees Jesus interviewing 3 potential recruits for his armed forces. Remember, Jesus is a king, and his goal is to bring everyone into his kingdom. But that means he needs a good army, good officers and soldiers who will obey orders, who are ready to do whatever he tells them. And Jesus had an advantage over other HR people. He could read hearts. So as we listen to the gospel, see if you can understand what is in the hearts of these 3 candidates, these 3 men. Let's see if you can guess, and we'll talk about it after that. So a reading from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 9, verses 51, 57 to 62. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But he said, "Lord, let me first go and bury my father." And Jesus said to him, "Leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Yet another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." The word of the Lord. So let's look at these 3 candidates. The first one said, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said, "Foxes have holes and birds have their nests, but the Son of Man," that's Jesus, "has nowhere to lay his head." Think about him and ask, share with one another, what do you think? What is in this man's heart? And what was Jesus trying to tell him about following him? Maybe the man didn't really understand what it meant to follow Jesus. He may have thought, Jesus is a great hero. If I join his team, I'll be with the winners. Maybe he was a good times man. He wanted Jesus, but not the difficulties. And Jesus tried to explain to him that life with him would not be easy. he would have nowhere to lay his head. Later, Jesus said, "A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecute me, they will persecute you." Sometimes we may feel like that. We may be a good times follower of Jesus. We want all the blessings, but we may not want the difficulties. What about the second candidate? Jesus directly asked this man to follow him. And the man said, "Lord, let me first go and bury my father." What did Jesus reply? "Leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." By the way, bury my father doesn't mean that his father had died and he wanted to attend the funeral. It meant, after my father dies, I'll come and follow you. You wait till then. So share with one another, pause and share with one another. What do you think? What was Jesus trying to tell this man? What did he read in his heart? What do you think Jesus said? If you don't follow me, you will be dead spiritually. Your soul will be dead. So don't delay in saying yes to me. If I call you, you come. Perhaps we can call this man a tomorrow man. He wanted to follow, but later. What about the third man? He wanted to follow Jesus, but there was a problem. What do you think his problem was? Listen to what Jesus says. No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. Share with one another what you think. This man seemed to be attached to his family. His heart was divided, like a farmer plowing but looking backwards. He would not make a good soldier in Jesus's army unless he was following Jesus with his whole heart. Maybe we can call him a divided man. He wanted Jesus, but he was not ready to give all of himself. I'd like to tell you a true story about a young man named Francis who also heard the call. Now, Francis was a young man who dreamed about becoming a knight or being a famous hero. And so he joined the army and he fought bravely against a neighboring enemy. But instead of coming back a hero, Francis was captured and he was in prison for a whole year until his father paid a ransom and he was set free. Francis had a dream when he was in prison and he saw himself in a shining palace filled with soldiers and weapons. And so when he was set free, he said, "Let me try again. I want to become a hero. I want to be in that palace." But he never reached the battlefield because on the way, he heard a voice coming from nowhere. It said, "Francis, is it better to serve the master or the servant?" And at last, Francis understood. He realized it was the greatest king who was calling him to join his army. He was calling him to serve in a different kind of army, a different kind of kingdom, and he was ready. So Francis began to go and pray in caves and lonely places. He wore a simple robe, shaved his head, and he was trying to hear, "Jesus, what do you want me to do? My king, what do you want?" And one day he was praying in an old church. It was falling to pieces. And Jesus from the crucifix said, Francis, you can see that my house is falling down. Go and rebuild my house." So Francis straight away obeyed. He took cloth from his father's warehouse and he sold it to get money for rebuilding the church. His father was furious. See the man in the gold on the left, I think he's the father. He took Francis in front of the bishop and said, "This son of mine is a thief." Francis realized at that moment that he had to choose between his new king and his father, his home, his family, his mother, whom he loved. And he told his father in front of the bishop and everyone else, "I have only one father, my Father in heaven. From now on, he is my father." And he gave everything, even the clothes he was wearing. He said, "Take it all." So Francis served his king faithfully. He cared for lepers. He lived a very simple life. And soon many, many other men and women joined him. God worked many miracles through him as he went around calling people to return to God. And he rebuilt the Church of God, that means the Catholic Church. Francis wanted to be wounded. He wanted to suffer like his king. And he prayed to Jesus, "I want to suffer like you." And God heard his prayer. One day, angels appeared and gave him 5 wounds, just like the wounds of Jesus, 2 in his hands, 2 in his feet, and 1 in his side. And these wounds remained till he died. Just 2 years after he died, the Pope declared him Saint Francis. We call him Saint Francis of Assisi. And now his dream has come true. He is in that glorious palace. There's the king there, King Jesus, and he's surrounded by soldiers who fight with him. Even now, the fight is going on. Some years ago, I saw this poster, and it's remained in my head for many years. Join the Lord's army. The conditions are tough. Okay, when we join Jesus, it's not going to be a bed of roses. But the retirement benefits are out of this world. Heaven is beyond our wildest imagination, our best dream. So what about us, brothers and sisters, children? Do you want to join Jesus's army? Do you want to follow him? Be quiet and ask yourself, am I ready to follow Jesus? Do I sometimes say to Jesus, I'll follow you, like those 3 men, but not now, not when there are problems, and not with all my heart. Others are more important. Ask God to help you. With his help, we can follow him with all our heart. And we can trust him that he will only ask us to do something that we can do. And he'll give us the strength. Pause the video and spend some time in prayer. So something you can do this week, look up and read about St. Francis of Assisi. There's some very fascinating stories about, there's one about a fierce wolf who became like a gentle dog when Francis shouted at him. So do click on the blue link, which takes you to YouTube, and you could share your thoughts and experiences. And if you feel it would help someone else, share this video. So bye and God bless us all.